Hi, this is David Gornoski, host of A Neighbor's Choice and Things Hidden podcast, as well as some of our other programs like Science and You with our chief science advisor, Dr. Yu, and our seed oil survival series that we continue to have great fun unpacking the truth of nutrition. I wanted to give you a quick little message saying we appreciate all the support that we get from our monthly contributors and our one-time donation supporters. And we'd encourage all of you to go to our website, aneighborschoice.com, click on contribute, and make a monthly pledge today, whether it's $1, $5, 15, 20, 50, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter. Just be a part of building this new media project that we've developed to empower and inform, to inspire, to kickstart a scientific renaissance, an anthropological breakthrough and reformation in the church. All these things are possible with your support right now. So make that commitment today and help us keep doing the productions that we have. Thank you. I'm David Gornoski, your host, and we're here with Surit Dasgupta for another Things Hidden discussion. How you doing, Surit?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Good. So what is going on in the current events of our time today? Are you excited about what happens when Donald Trump faces off the impartial use of the justice system? Have you ever seen a more above the fray use of the law than this?
I mean, not in my lifetime. No, it's like this all
No
appears
one is
very
above the
unreal.
law, Surit.
Yeah, only your political opponents are.
No
Only
one
sorry,
is
only your
above the law.
only your the people in your team are above the law. The rest can go to jail, I guess.
Meanwhile, the what I call the left, the victimist left, the McWokesters, they are obsessed with Trump as their god. There's a story in the Express newspaper says, will Donald Trump be allowed conjugal visits with Melania if he's sent to prison? These people are obsessed. This is by Emily Hodgkin. These people are obsessed with their sacrificial idol. They see him as a god. As Rene Girard says, we don't invent our gods, we deify our victims. Of course, in their mind, they don't think he's a victim yet, but he is from a more independent perspective, a victim of unfair use of lawfare, to the point of criminalizing anybody who's ever worked for his administration, and singling him out as some kind of exceptional threat to politics. It is just a feeding frenzy of envy and resentment and anger and blind hatred fueling this snowballing. And so for that reason, his personal style, his personal insults and stuff have just angered some fragile narcissistic egos so badly that they are obsessed with getting him. But they're not just obsessed with getting him, they're obsessed with him because they want to know what he's going to do in these kind of tawdry headlines and stuff. They're obsessed with this person. They see him as their god and their villain, as their devil.
Yeah, I mean, this is the classic hallmark of people obsessed with scapegoating, and like this is why scapegoats are often deified. And of course, like if we're familiar with Gerard, like it's we can see that right after the expulsion takes place, right after the scapegoat is purged, uh, that scapegoat is instantly deified. Not instantly, but I guess in a very methodical manner, they deified, and the reason why is that in the process of persecuting a person, uh, the people who are doing the persecution, they fall in love with that person to an extent, right? They become that person. They want to become that person, And once that scapegoat is killed off or imprisoned or whatever, then they realize they cannot become that person anymore. And so they make this person a big other, like a very transcendental figure of some kind. So they end up making that person a god. So I wouldn't be surprised if these people who are going after Trump, I wouldn't be surprised if in the very distant future they make Trump into some kind of a Prometheus like figure, like a very tragic deity of some sort.
Yeah. What do you think they will? What do you think they'll say? He was afflicted by late stage white supremacy or something, and that's why he just got a little bit
Yeah,
deranged.
yeah,
And he's
probably that.
yeah, and therefore he was a sad cautionary tale for anybody else who's white or whatever their little scapegoat narrative is to keep feeding the beast. Right. That I could see that being a narrative that they would therapeutize his what they consider to be beyond the pale behavior. They could therapeutize it and say, well, he was just a victim of late stage white supremacy encoding into his mind, right?
Yeah, yeah, they
And he
probably
showed us the
they
way about how to get out of it.
they they'll probably treat him like a tragic rock star, like a rock star who died too young, that kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
They'll say, oh no, too it's so tragic, like that rock star had OD'd on the on drugs, or went after women and stuff. But he was so charismatic, he was so exciting, that kind of a figure.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a lot of this, you know, it's interesting that Trump continues that same celebrity um, kind of uh, tabloid brand even into this post presidency deal. You've got stories of Britney Spears is up for a new divorce with her husband. It's hitting the tabloids at the same time, and he's threatening to spill her deep, dark secrets. The headlines say, and it makes you wonder. Sounds like again kind of the things they do with Trump. Is he going to be able to do this in prison? What's going to happen to him here? What's going to happen to him there? A fixation on the persona, like no other politician. Of course, with Obama stuff, he's got his personal chef, drowning in his own, backyard. And it's as if nothing happened. It's just, okay, just as if a squirrel or something drowned in a pool. It's just, oh, yeah, whatever, nothing to see here. And they don't want to allow that kind of same fixation to latch on to other politicians. I mean, the Clintons, give me a break. The things that they are engaged with, and, you never see any of it hitting the headlines. So it sounds like the headlines are there for those who kind of step out of line to some degree.
Which makes me wonder, like, do you think Trump is aware of his of the impact he has had on the United States as a whole, or is he still stuck into that pre 2016 kind of uh, I guess what I want to say is he thinks that he still commands that kind of aura which he had as a celebrity, like that show that he was on, The Apprentice,
Yeah.
and like he wasn't treated like a threat. He was more treated like someone like a Paris Hilton, or like someone like a Kanye West even. I guess he probably thinks that he's on that same level, but he's far surpassed that. So, do you think, like, if Trump thinks like that, if it still thinks that he is just a little controversial celebrity, that he is sort of not realizing the kind of impact that he's having on politics, on culture, and all this, and this is sort of like a detriment to his campaign in some sense.
Do you think that he is aware of what he's doing to the country? You're
Yeah,
saying, or what do you mean by that?
yeah. I mean, like, what he's aware is, if he is aware of the people who are voting for him are voting for him as a disruptor, right? They're voting for him, like a lot of people voted for him in that regards, right? Because they were tremendously unhappy with Obama's presidency, and they were absolutely dissatisfied with all of uh, the health care and all of that, the Obamacare and all of that. They were completely dissatisfied with the normal GOP politicians as well, right? Like George Bush and all of those guys. So they were just sick and tired. The average people, they were sick and tired back then in 2016 of being, played like a fiddle all the time. And Trump was their disruptor. He was their ticket to, completely disrupt everything, and as a result, build something good on top of the ruins.
Yeah.
So, do you think Trump is aware of that kind of impact that he's having on the United States, like even as he is now preparing to go into prison?
Um, no, I don't know. I don't know. I think that he still thinks somehow that he can unite the country. I don't understand how he doesn't. Maybe he just doesn't seem to understand. But I think he thinks he can somehow, if he wins the presidency, that he could somehow bring the country together. But I don't know. I don't think that's he. He still, though Bishop said it before, that he was a pragmatic moderate when, in his mind, when he won. Remember, he said, "Oh, they said, are you going to keep criminally pursuing? Are you going to criminally pursue Hillary Clinton for her crimes?" And he's, "Oh no, we're fine. Everybody's happy. We like her. She's good." You
Yeah,
know, like what a
yeah,
clown compared to what these guys have done. They've criminalized and ruined his life and everybody else around him. And I think there's some people I have heard that are conspiracy theorists beyond healthy boundaries that think that Trump's in on this, in the sense that like he went along with like, hey, yeah, go ahead and like, harass my family members, harass my business interests, harass me, criminally indict me 50 times. It's all an act or something. I think there's a level of paranoia that seeps into some of these conspiracy theory people that's just so unhealthy. They think he's like in on this on every level just because he trusts in the system, and is naively moderate, at least, and he thinks that they can bring these people. I don't know if he still is, probably not that much anymore, but he's still naive and moderate about, disastrously so, about the that garbage fraud product that he was used as the token to bring into the public, which is still doing horrible things to people. But
yeah. It could be the case that he is more of a Don Quixote kind of
yeah,
character rather than someone who's in on it,
yeah, he
or
still
something like that.
believes in the romanticism of the kind of politics that he grew up under, maybe, this kind of, the days in which you could, get together and sing, you know, at a dinner club or something and roast everybody and everybody be fine. I don't think we're there anymore. Yeah, I don't think so. But I do think that, he will serve to destroy. Now they're not, people aren't going to like this one, but I'm going to make it anyways. Okay. So, we talk about him as a scapegoat, but in a kind of typological way. This is going to be fun. So, if he goes to prison, and if it does it the right way, it's going to be like a harrowing of hell moment for him. Because when he goes into the captivity, he will set the captives free who are in prison. And I think people don't
Yeah,
understand this, but you're going to see this happen. So I don't care. I don't care what people are going to try to twist what I'm saying in there. It doesn't matter. They don't understand anthropology. They don't understand what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter. But for those who understand, they'll get it, that like by going into that prison, by taking someone who is a, former high priest of the United States, although a heretical one, and then pushing him into 2 impeachments. He's ruined the impeachments. Impeachments don't mean anything anymore. Having Access Hollywood tape revealed where he says that stuff, that used to be, that was, George W. Bush was in trouble for a DUI. I mean, from years ago in the 2004 election, but they have the Access tape for him. And that's, again, it doesn't work. So they keep putting all these things. And I think the final step will be, if they put him in prison, I think it will ruin the power of the prison system, not just as a system, but as a principality in and of itself, as a cultural framework of fear. It will ruin that, because if a guy who says you're fired, and a guy who is goofing off in the way he does and being ridiculous and still just keeps coming, who actually becomes president, if he can go to prison, if the presidency, because you got to think of the state as a religious structure. So if the high priest of that religious structure can be pushed into the prison system, that's like Jesus as the high priest going into the hell. He comes out of it, he will ruin. And again, this is a type. It's just a picture, because Jesus is the stone the builders rejected. So anybody, no matter how guilty they are of factual guilt, could be put into a similar way in which they ruin the scapegoat mechanism in their culture, just like Trump will do. Because when you put him into the prison, it will ruin its fear framework, because it's like the president was there. So anybody else who gets persecuted, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be a shame place. It's supposed to be a place of shame. Here's what I want to get at. Prison is supposed to be a place of shame. But if they put the president there, it will ruin that shame matrix, will dissipate. If they pursue everybody else with political trumped up charges, which they've done for decades in America and hundreds, but now when they do it, it'll be even less effective as a social construct, as something that people say, that's not the shameful matrix it used to be. And it's not, and again, it's going to hit the group of people who have traditionally been most in favor of tough prison sentencing, the populist working class supporters who like Trump. The suburbanites who are always kind of on the fence about Trump, they're already on board with criminal justice reform. Some Democrats are on board with criminal justice reform. Libertarian types are on criminal justice reform. Trump, ironically, was the only one who passed criminal justice reform with the First Step Act. But he doesn't brand himself as such, so it doesn't really have the same poetic rhyming effect. But the fact that you would put a president in there with all those diehard fans who are going to say, I'm never going to look at the prison system again. So the fear matrix of you will go to prison is going to be ruined by this. Now, of course, they could go crazy and go more violent and make prison more violent and psychological tormenting. And there's a lot of creative things that little wokesters could do. I can imagine. You get the little wokesters and the Gen Z psychopaths on TikTok in charge of controlling a prison system one day. I think you could be very amazed at the kind of creative tortures and petty violence they could come up with. But that's another day, As the system is today, it will ruin it. It will ruin it.
Yeah, a lot of people are under the assumption that if Trump goes to prison, that he won't be able to run from there. But I think that's kind of false, right? He can still run for office,
right,
as he is incarcerated.
Yeah.
I mean, it hasn't happened before, but I'm just like, this image of him running from behind a prison cell, it's like a surreal moment, and that too in a country which is the most powerful country in the world. And can you imagine that?
And let's be clear about the biggest charges that he faced are basically First Amendment issues and election contest issues. So if he loses those issues, if he goes to prison for that, he will become a kind of martyr figure for the American Republic, in the sense that his if he is successfully imprisoned, it means that the First Amendment is dead, and that challenging election chicanery is dead. You're not allowed to, which is what they're trying to do, because they're still playing hardball politics, because they don't understand the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. They don't understand that it's going to hasten their demise in terms of the believability of their gimmicks. Their gimmicks have always been based on, take this garbage fraud product that's going to make our friends in big pharma billions of dollars because this will save your life. And then it turns out, no, it didn't. Those who have taken all the extra versions of that product are the ones most likely to be hit with vicious mutations of this virus. The same ones who told us don't ever question where it came from when it came out of a lab. The United States government, had nothing to do with it. All this stuff. They're lying over and over and over again. And at some point, I don't know when, but at some point, I think that a lot of the folks who are in this hate matrix will peel off, because once you put Trump in prison, what more can you do? The only thing you can do, they can do is do,
JFK.
Yeah. I mean, but again, if they do that, it will only destroy their scapegoat matrix, because they will have devoured their victim and they won't have anything to bind them together anymore. What will they be next? They have a generalized hatred for the working class people that Trump represents in their mind. I'm not saying he truly represents them. I'm saying in their mind, he represents vicariously the working class people. But 70 million people or something is a much harder thing to scapegoat. You have to have, it's much easier to have a singular personality that you can fixate upon and wonder about their conjugal visits. That's a more God-friendly vessel than a group of people. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what we may think about Trump, this is for certain, is that Trump was like a barrier, or like a scapegoat shield between the political class and the working class people, right? So that's part of my concern, if there is any, is that Trump, once he is eliminated, imprisoned, or whatever, sure that they won't be able to erase his aura and all of that. They won't be able to erase his magnetic attractiveness that he as a scapegoat will have once he is detained. Uh, the political class, after eliminating him, they, in all likelihood, they will go after the working class people as a whole, right? Unless another scapegoat steps in. So, what would that look like? Would that look like another pandemic? Would that look like even worse than a pandemic? That's something that's what I've been asking myself, I guess, as things are unraveling more and more day by day.
Yeah, I would imagine if a state tried to peacefully secede from the union, that one of those
Oh no!
one
I
of
mean,
those
we all know what
one of
happened.
those viruses would unleash, and then they'd have to close off anybody exiting that state. Can you imagine what they would do? Oh gosh, one of those random viruses leaked out, and
Oh, another one escaped.
we're gonna have to keep people from leaving that state or entering that state and quarantine them, and then force and vaccinate them. I mean, God knows what these sadistic people would do. There's a level of vicious, violent, sadistic nature to people with a little modicum of power, which is deeply disturbing and cuts against the running theme and hopes of this show, which is that incarnational reality is winning in history. Because you look at the level of petty depravity and idiocy and nasty, snarling pettiness, the banality of evil, as they say, and how pathetic it is and how relentless it is at trying to ruin other people's lives that don't comply with random edicts. And it's quite disturbing in what they will do. The mob can turn up in different ways, and it's disturbing to me that the right continues to want to have little Caesars to save them, because I think that's a fool's errand on multiple levels. There's a story out of Daily Star, another headline. Cannibal tribe eats thieves as punishment, devouring everything apart from penises. An American adventurer who met with a Stone Age tribe that still practices cannibalism says it's used as a punishment for criminals or people who are possessed by demons. Story by Michael Moron. An adventurer journeying to one of the most remote jungles on Earth to unearth the terrifying cannibal tribe. Drew Bensky is his name. He traveled alone to Papua New Guinea, where the reclusive Korowai people live, much as our Stone Age ancestors would have done. They wear little or no clothing and hunt using bows and arrows. Until 1974, when anthropologists ventured into the Indonesian provinces of South Papua and Highland Papua, the Korowai didn't know there were any other people on Earth. Drew spent a lot of time among the Mamuna tribe, near neighbors of the Korowai, who told him about their fearsome cousins. I learned that the Korowai don't eat humans for enjoyment or nutritional value, he explained. It's simply a form of punishment. You steal something, you get burned over a fire and eaten. The Korowai also believe that an evil demon called a kakua can possess a human being and eat them from the inside, turning them into a witch. To them, it's just common sense that someone who is possessed should also be killed and eaten. The Korowai believe that mysterious deaths like diseases are attributed to the kakua, or evil demons who take on the human form. Kakuas are said to disguise themselves as friends or family members in an attempt to gain the trust of the tribe so they can later kill them. It's Korowai tradition to perform cannibalistic rituals on anyone believed to be a kakua so they can protect the tribe's members. It's part of a revenge-based justice system, they said. The taste of human meat has been compared to that of wild boar or emu. Tribespeople, who the hell tried emu? Tribespeople eat every part of the body except the hair, nails, and the penis. Children under, that's some Freudian stuff right there, isn't it? My goodness. Children under 13 aren't allowed to eat human meat because the Korowai believe that eating a kakua carries the risk of becoming possessed yourself. One jungle guide named Cornelius told Vice how he gained the trust of the isolated tribe. They explained one night they gave him a pack of meat and told him it was human. If he ate it, he could stay with them, and if he didn't, then they'd tell him to leave. He ate it, and so he became very close to them. Isn't that interesting? That's the tell.
So this
I built it all the way up for the payoff at that last sentence. He ate it, and he becomes so close to them. I wonder why. You're listening to Things Hidden. I wonder why, folks. Surit, why do you think that happened?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of questions as you were reading it. So this tribe sounds like someone who has really gone down the spiral down in a sense, because usually how cannibals usually the cannibalistic ritual is reserved for someone who is like a grave offender, right? Not someone who steals or like breaks non-violent victim crimes or something, right? So the fact that these guys have extended cannibalistic punishments to even like the smallest little petty crimes is very fascinating, and I'm wondering what led them to that point.
They probably didn't have nothing to eat, maybe. I mean, that's one, or maybe there was a famine or something.
So they extended the ritual, you think? Like
I'm just saying, I mean, first of all, you're hearing it from the perspective of their cousins. So their cousins might be scapegoating them a little bit too. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe they're trumping up their viciousness a little bit harder than they wanted. Maybe they're just messing with the guy and they're trying to, accentuate their stuff to make them look a little more scared, or make them look nicer by comparison. Or to troll them. But I don't remember, we've had Monica Paulus on this program many times, or a couple of times through the years, and she was from Papua New Guinea. She's in a different part that wasn't as remote, but she was accused of being a witch. If she yawned wrong, they'd think a spell was a devil was coming out of your mouth. And anytime there was a mysterious death or illness in the community, they were always trying to burn somebody alive, and they literally did burn people alive for being accused of being witches. So the idea of this, of course, is not something that would be made up. I really think it's true, and it is true from the evidence. But I think, first of all, yeah, you're right. I think it's a little harsh to be trying to roast someone over a Spitfire, rotisserie style, because they stole something. But seems to indicate that they were on the precipice. I mean, I don't know. The jungle seems to be filled with life and food, but something was going on there to stress them out to the point where they needed to.
Some scandal, some like cataclysmic event or something happened, and they're like, okay, we aren't doing this ritual hard enough.
Yeah.
So that's probably the explanation. Maybe a war had broken out or something, between some tribes.
Yeah, maybe it was the pressure of other communities around them being exposed to the West, right? And maybe they felt the need to double down on making sure that they, kept.
That could also be true. Yeah.
Kept people out of their way. But I like that last sentence. I think that last sentence is interesting because he says he goes over there and he ate it, and so he became very close to them. And I think that's interesting because
it's almost like a communion of sorts, right? Like they ate someone's body and they become united.
Yeah. I have Luke chapter 23, verse 12 open. And in the same day, Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before they were at enmity between themselves. And Herod and Pilate became friends with each other that very day, for before this they had been at enmity with each other. That's another translation. So their enmity was resolved, Herod and Pilate, through the collective persecution of Jesus. Now, they didn't eat Jesus, but as we know, the scapegoat rituals and cannibalistic rituals are on a continuum of the same social function in society. And of course, it also contrasts with what Jesus says when he says, Jesus said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So there you go. You have examples of the kind of process that's going on in real time, I guess, to this day in some of the remote parts of the world where the gospel has not been able to affect transformations. You've got people preserved in amber, so to speak, where you can see a time capsule of how the world functioned. But it also goes to show that ritual cannibalism of what they use to bind people together to become friends and to get along is at the heart of what we see with these political scandals.
Yeah, the modern day cannibalism, basically, right? We find a post-Christian cannibalism, right?
Well, I'm just saying, raising up Britney Spears as a young lady to idolize and then laughing at her demise, everybody collectively sharing, all saying, oh, we're concerned about her health, but all feeling like, well, she gets what she deserves. That's what happens when you become a pop icon with that much, whatever. That is there, with a lot of people. When they look at someone who falls from grace and goes crazy, they say, my goodness, this is someone that everybody wanted to be like. Then, well, that's what happens. That's the punishment for going too close to the sun, and the same thing happens with Trump. Who are you, Trump, to just come in first time you ever run for office, win the presidency, calling names, calling people every kind of taboo? There will be punishment. The gods will punish you, right? And the gods, of course, are the crowd, demos, and the rule of law being used in a political way, but always being said that it's above the fray of the crowd, because that's their last vestige they have to project. In the ancient world, the mob would rush someone, they cannibalize them or throw them off of a cliff, and then later on through the ages, they would remember that event as if the gods had told them or the gods had done that. But today, the last vestige of it is this decorum that they use when the special prosecutors come out to announce the latest charges. They talk with a very somber, They're very, very, very matter of fact, very methodical, very sterile, no emotions very much, as much as they can try to subdue. And they insist over and over and over again that this is just the impartial, random act of the rule of law. That's the last vestige of Zeus. You see that? See that? You can see it in real time, folks, that this random, because they make it like it's a myth. We're just here to tell you that nobody is above the law. What does that mean? In other words, they're saying, we're here to tell you that nobody can escape the wrath of the gods. That Zeus will find you. Zeus will strike when you least expect it. And why are they saying that? They're saying that because they have to cover up for their participation in the collective violence of trying to put someone in a cage for nonviolent choices. So they have, and to do so in such an audacious way as someone who was supported by 75 million people. Remember, a scapegoat has to be someone that everybody unanimously agrees deserves to be punished and is guilty, and they can't get it. But they have, the only way they can even try to get it is to appeal to the last vestige of projecting their violence into the sky with a big other, right? As Zizek would say, the big other being the rule of law, this transcendent. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, even in the way they describe Trump, they describe him as like the big other, right? Like he has orange tinted skin, he has these peculiar hairstyle, and he is like, he talks in this manner, and he's like speaks in a very unfiltered manner, a very a manner that's breaking taboos all the time, or as like blatant disregard for any quote unquote political speak or whatever people like to call him. And he's really become that. And yeah, I think you are exactly spot on in saying that this is Zeus, is because what really is it, like if you go behind the scenes on these mythological stories and the sausage making of those stories, is that of course there's no big hunk guy sitting in the clouds ready to strike at you with a lightning bolt. The what makes that entity is the collective, the crowd, the participation, the unanimous participation of that crowd in scapegoating a single victim and a single whatever, a single scapegoat, right? Like that's how gods in the ancient world were manifested as. They were manifested from the crowd, from the unanimous binding of the crowd. And like you said, like how these crowd, how they would usually bind is they would share a common meal, and specifically cannibalism, like sharing human flesh.
But you're cannibalizing someone's spirit even if you're eating turkey while laughing at their demise together and enjoying it. That's cannibalism sublimated into the turkey. Let's be clear, right? So there's a continuation of that.
Yeah, this is not just secret science of the elites, right? This is human beings as a whole.
Yeah.
This is human nature, right?
Yeah. And there is a well, the thing that they fear about Trump, the big, I think the big other, the big other they're appealing to is this, again, this transcendent rule of law, which is beyond the big other of Trump, if you want to call Trump a big other, right? Because what they're saying is that, Trump is representing rule breaking, which would threaten their world order. Rule breaking, like making friends with a designated villain like Russia and Putin. Until the TV and the oligarchs tell the TV-owned masses to like Russia, they will not like Russia because they have been primed to sick them, and they won't be told to like Russia until someone who is completely owned by Western oligarchs is installed in that government, right, controlling things over there. So oligarchs understand how to foment these kind of mimetic frenzies one way or another to a point. They can't create the sacred, though, because they can't create unanimity. They can only create a kind of quasi-sacred within the subgroup, the schism that they're operating their effective narrative on, their psychological conditioning on. So with a Trump figure, he represents the reason why he's a big other scapegoat on another level is that he's transgressing things which they have been told would threaten the world order survival. The idea being this is that Trump is saying that working class people can be brought into the fold, even if they're white, and not be treated as monsters. And the establishment order is saying, no, we have designated them to be the new kicking post, the new kicking, the new designated scapegoat that you can kick safely, culturally. And by you bringing them back into the fold, into cultural goodness, and saying their music is good, their values are good too, that is a transgression that threatens the world order that they've built, because they believe their world order needs a perpetual scapegoat to maintain itself, right? And so their world order needs a constant enemy class to hunt, to dehumanize. And so they're constantly reminding their coalition of voters and ideologues that Trump's order of people are trying to victimize past scapegoats, because they say, well, black people have been scapegoated by redlining and all these other things. And so therefore, if you don't allow these white working class people to be put in the designated scapegoat box, you're basically saying that the other ones are possible scapegoats. That's the story they're being told, right? Someone has to be the villain. Somebody has to get kicked in order for the society to continue, is what they're being told. It's what human beings want. Because we hate God. Ultimately, we hate an unconditionally loving God that tries to get us to look at our own sins first rather than looking at the sins of our neighbor. We cannot stand to look in the mirror first. That's the human condition, right?
And another thing I wanted to just highlight before that is that you can see, like, the cannibals that you have described in the story, you can sort of see how they have doubled down on the cannibalistic punishments, how it is very same to how these globalists are doubling down, right? Well, I wanted to make a comparison between how the tribes, the cannibalistic tribe that you just described in that story, how they extended their punishment to even petty crimes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we came to is like maybe some war had happened, maybe some sort of disaster had happened that made them come to such an extreme position. So I'm thinking, like, are we seeing this kind of doubling down?
Yeah, it's a good
violence and coercion.
Yeah.
But
that's
Trump,
a sign. It's whatever the reason for them doing that. If that is what they're doing to cannibalize someone over theft, and I don't know what they're talking about stealing. Maybe it was one of the pieces of cargo from the cargo cults that are over there in that area. I don't know. That would have been a sacred object if that was. But if they are doing it for that kind of petty crime, that's a sign that the scapegoat mechanism is losing its power, right? If you're using it for every little things like that, it's a sign that it's not efficacious, because the whole point of a scapegoat effect is that you don't have to do it a lot, and if you're using that for theft, it looks like your culture's up against the wall socially, mimetically. It's starting to break and fray. So yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately we can expect the kind of doubling down on aggression in any system, including America, as it continues to lose its ability to be bound together by civic religion and so forth. I mean, I saw they have these things, this new trend where they're trying to get people excited about having racial violence, and they've got black people calling it on Twitter, at least, hitting people with chairs is the new thing. It's a new trend to hit people in the head with the chair, and people are posting themselves using metal chairs to hit, white people violently in the head repeatedly with chairs. And you think to yourself, I mean, that's kind of undifferentiated violence that's going to continue to bubble out of this culture, the more they try to sacrifice and scapegoat, and it doesn't create catharsis and satisfaction and unanimity. And the fact that 75 or whatever, how many million people support Trump, 80 million, whatever it is, and they're going to support him even more so when he goes to prison, that bothers the conscience of the people who are trying to go along with the mythic narrative that this man deserves to be treated unlike any other politician in American history. It bothers their conscience because the whole point mimetically is that you're taking your cues from your neighbor. And half of your neighbors are rejecting what you're doing as not a solemn, sacred justice act, but an egregious violation of justice. Then that mimetically creates cognitive dissonance in you, and it doesn't create pleasure when you put him in prison. See what I mean? That's why it's not effective. Because it won't be a lesson. It'll be a lesson to all the wrong people. The people who were going to be sellouts and not rock the boat, they'll be reminded why they should never quit being little sellouts. People who, what I'm saying? The people who were going to be McCain's and Romney's, perpetual warmongers, perpetual Federal Reserve supporters, perpetual civil liberty destroyers, perpetual prison industrial complex enablers, perpetual FDA big pharma oligarch enablers, the ones who would never rock the boat. This just reminds them why they don't rock the boat. But for folks who, see this system as it is, it's going to increase their likelihood to rebel against it. Because the level of violence that the society would have to employ to get people to really stop in their tracks, it's a level of violence that they don't have the appetite to employ. That's what I call the impotence of the sacrificial system. They don't have the. I mean, look, they can have all kinds of creative ways to do violence. I understand, but in terms of overt punishments, named as such, is a big difference. Does that make sense? They can give you a lot of garbage, big pharma medicines that'll make you sick and in pain and in a lot of problems. And in some ways, that's a kind of soft sacrificial machine, unfortunately, to the elderly and those who are sick. But they can't overtly say this is punishment and then do a crucifixion of Trump supporters. Do you think, Surit, that the hardest blue Anon type liberal, like if these liberals went nuts to a point and they somehow, like in Central Park, filled the whole Central Park with like crucified January 6 people, do you think that would be something the blue people, that the Democrats in New York City would be excited about? Would they go along with it right now?
No, I they can't bring themselves to such levels of brutality.
But would they do that? I mean, let's talk about the Christ who is king of history. Let's bring it right back into the mix of this conversation. Could they do that in 2023 AD? Do they have the guts to be that sick?
Hell no.
They can't do it because Christ is king. So at least we don't have crucifixions to worry about. But everything else maybe is up for the guy. I don't know.
I mean, if you look at some of the methods of torture, they used to have this bronze bull where they would put people inside and they would bake that person inside of a bronze bull, right? That
sounds like a bunch of BS to me.
No, that exists.
No,
you can look at that. Yeah, maybe someone like a modern academic might frown on that, but that really, there's evidence. I mean, crucifixion is severe as it is, and then you had even during colonial times, you had people being wrapped to the head of a
Okay.
cannon and then blow it into pieces.
All right.
But
Let's dial it down. Let's dial it down. Let's dial it down. Let's just say it's public whippings with
public
sharp.
weapons.
Would the New York City liberal elites, with all their snarling hatred for MAGA people, would they enjoy going to Central Park and seeing all these January 6th people whipped violently with, like Jesus with cat of nine tails? Let's just dial it down to that over and over and over again.
Maybe a very die-hard segment of that would go ahead with that. And by die-hard, I mean like Antifa level die-hard. Maybe those people would sign up for that. But
Antifa people don't wear they cover their masks, so they're already ashamed.
Yeah,
So they're
they're already ashamed of their violence. Yeah. So
could people without masks, meaning people with balls, right? And let's talk about people who are totally eunuch, but people who don't need to wear masks to hit people with skateboards because they're fantasizing being a Foot Clan ninja soldier for Shredder. If those guys, let's put those guys who are funded by billionaire oligarchs. And by the way, I have to wonder about Antifa. I'm curious. We've had Biden here for a few years. We still don't have any communism. Why aren't they protesting? They said they were communists.
Because they're
anarcho-communists. Every time you interview them, they say, "Oh, we're going down with the state." Hell, there's a lot of people in prison right now. There's a lot of people still in the system. Where are you, Antifa? You cowardly little.
Ever heard of the definition? Ever heard of the term "useful idiots"? That's what they are. Yeah. They're a bunch of
trust fund baby billionaire babies. Trust fund billionaire babies.
Punk rockers for hire. Basically, cosplayers. That's what they really are. They don't even believe their own stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, let's talk about normal people. With normal people in New York City. How about San Francisco? Would San Francisco ordinary liberals publicly support, Trump supporter January 6th people being tarred and feathered and left out in public display for shame with burning hot tar on them?
Well, even in that,
as an official form of punishment. I'm saying as an official form of punishment, because I know you could have some random guy get beat up and then people on Twitter would like it, right? And they'd say, yeah, he deserved it, right? And we'd say, oh, yeah, they are very violent. But would they go along with it being an official form of sanctioned state punishment for these people? Tar and feathering with hot oil.
Well, I was thinking of that even in that designated police-free zone that I don't know what became of it. What was it called? Chad, or what? Even in that place, they didn't come up with such brutal form of punishment.
Yeah.
But what they did was basically lunchroom drama, something like that. They quarreled and shouted at each other, but they
actually shot each other too. Like 2 or 3 people got shot and killed there too. But,
okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, we have shootings and all of that, but it's not really the same as whipping or anything like that, right? So. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to come up with an example of someone who may do that thing that you are describing. And so far, I mean, not in the West. I can't see anyone in the West coming up with such an appetite for destruction, an appetite for, making an example out of the enemy. That kind of mentality. I don't think it's existing.
Christ
sense.
is chastening the nations. He's defanging them, right?
Yeah, definitely. It looks like it.
And he's going to defang China too, by the way. It's just going to maybe a little bit down the road.
Well, China, whatever they're doing, like this disputable. I mean, this stuff with the Uyghurs and whatever. I mean, if China was so brazen, they would be saying, yeah, we are doing it.
Right. They're still haunted by the cross, even though because they're infected by the Western values, right?
Yeah, they're not so brazen about it, right? They defend it, they defend themselves, and they even say that we don't do anything like that. It's all made up propaganda by you guys or whatever. So I mean, if they, let's assume that they are doing some kind of brutal stuff behind their borders, they definitely don't seem to be coming forward, and they
They're
have
not proud of
such
it like
strict.
Rome would have been. Rome would have been proud of it.
Rome would have been proud of it. Rome would have hung the bodies, crucified bodies, right on the streets for everyone to see.
London would have hung William Wallace in the, when they did their thing in the 1500s. So,
Yeah,
you know, that's not a long time ago.
yeah, but the execution of William Wallace was basically at a time when the culture was not so much saturated in Christianity as it is right now, right?
No, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why they were able to decapitate him and hang him from the Tower of London or
Let's just put it this way:
wherever.
they weren't reading their Bible on a daily basis over there.
Yeah,
Okay.
they weren't. Yeah, they I don't think the maybe the English translation came out. I don't know. so so who knows? Like that's very closer to
If
pagan
you're if
times
you're
than.
if you're a priest in that time, and your parishioners are going out to watch someone's intestines been pulled out of them while they're alive, you're not doing it right. Whatever you're doing at your church, I don't care what you
Yeah,
say. I don't care
yeah,
what divine authority you think you've got. It ain't working. And that's the case for a lot of these different epochs in history. But like you're saying, we're still judging these things by one standard, which is the slain victim. The slain victim before the foundations of the world is the one that governs our conduct and our conscience here. And it will continue to do so. You can't escape it, which is why we know that Christ is king, because you can't escape it. I saw a friend, was posting videos of animals being devoured while they're alive, and I said, by what standard is this offensive to you? Because the Romans would have enjoyed watching animals, and they did enjoy watching animals being devoured alive and humans being devoured alive.
they devoured animals just to read the freaking fortune, just to read the future.
Yeah. So, I
You
mean, the
know,
idea that we find these things in nature abysmal is, again, by what standard? It's the standard of Christ, because we know that there's something wrong about the way the nature, that nature is off too. It's not just us that's off. Nature's off, and it's not the way it should be. So that's something that only Christianity provides. Even to the point where you've got, horrible stories, and we'll have to leave it kind of on a cliffhanger on this one, but I do want to get into what's going on in Hawaii. And the sacred water there apparently was held back by an Obama Foundation stooge who's in charge of the water management over there on the island. And I don't know if we'll have time to cover it in this episode, but we'll unpack that, because there's something weird again about trying to repeal Christianity, and you get back to these more primitive forms of culture where you're trying to, like, you're more concerned about the sacredness of water, so you cut it off when people are trying to use that to put out fires in their homes. And again, what is the purpose of our lives? Is our lives to fight for abstractions like the planet, like using the planet as an abstraction to justify allowing your neighbors to be, burned alive because you're cutting off the water? Again, when you try to repeal Christianity, you're going to get hyper Christianized versions of neo paganism infecting back into society again. It's just inevitable. But you can't repeal
yeah.
Christianity. One thing I don't like, sir, I think you agree with me on this, would you? That I don't like the term post-Christian. I see a lot of good Christian thinkers sometimes say we're entered into a post-Christian world in the West. I don't believe that at all.
Well, I mean, a lot of people may mean different things by it. Uh, a lot of people wrongly say post-Christian in the sense like Christianity has sort of lost its relevance or something like that, which I don't agree with. I think Christianity is much more relevant than ever. But yeah, if they mean like post-Christian, if they mean that we live in a secular world which is trying its hardest to disown Christianity, that Christendom aspect of Christianity, then I can totally understand. I mean, even I use it time to time.
You say
But
post-Christendom, maybe?
yeah, that could be a much more accurate statement. Yeah.
Well, that
Yeah.
sounds like we're getting to a Christian worldview then,
Yeah.
Because
We're getting
whatever
past
Christianity
stage.
is doing the sacrificial violence is not a Christianity that's really doing what Christ wants us to do. And Rene
Yeah.
Girard was keen to point out that the logos of Christ is eternally expelled in our normal societies. It's not any kind of logos that you've put into the center fulcrum of society that's meting out beheadings and whippings and beatings and stuff like that in the name of Jesus is really antithesis to what the logos, which is always expelled, it looks like. And so I mean, if it wasn't that way, then Jesus would have done things differently. He would have said, Peter, you're right, we're going to conquer this city by force, and we're going to change policies in the treatment of the poor, and we're going to change policies in the treatment of the lepers, because there's a lot of people who are suffering right now and we can't wait. It's unjust to not do so. He didn't do that. And unfortunately, a lot of folks who say they follow him haven't got that memo yet 2,000 years later, but we'll help them get it, and hopefully we'll get it to ourselves. Huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, sir, for joining me. And as always, you can email us hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. Godspeed.